The Mechanics of Delusion.
Alright, let's cut straight to the chase. Welcome back to today's deep dive analysis. Today, we are going to talk about a topic that is honestly going to blow your mind a little bit. Waking up from reality, the mechanics of delusion. You might think you look at this world in a super clear, completely objective way, but today's content is guaranteed to utterly shatter your current perceptions. It's going to expose exactly how your brain is secretly playing tricks on you behind the scenes. First, I want to hit you with a direct question, right here, right now. Are you absolutely 100% certain that you are awake? It sounds like a cliché line from a sci-fi movie, right? But think about it very carefully. When you are having those incredibly deep, hyper-realistic dreams at night where you are feasting on a massive banquet or laughing your head off with friends in that exact moment, you would never suspect for a single second that it's fake, would you? If that's the case, what on earth makes us so incredibly certain that this highly convincing reality right now isn't just another massive, hyper-immersive waking dream? This brings us straight into our first core concept, Chapter 1, the waking dream, blurring the boundary between sleep and reality. Let's look at what this actually means. This blueprint perfectly illustrates an utterly absurd fact. Did you know that the brain processes daytime reality and nighttime dreams using the exact same underlying mechanism? Think about it. When our alarm goes off in the morning and we wake up from a terrible nightmare, we usually just brush it off, right? We say, "Wow, thank goodness that was just a dream. It wasn't real." But what happens when it comes to the delusions, biases, or projections our brain generates during the day? We will fight to the absolute death to defend them. Even when those thoughts completely defy logic, we still white-knuckle them as absolute, infallible truths. When you really pause and think about it, clinging to our daytime thoughts like that is just as ridiculous as treating a nighttime nightmare as reality. To fully decode why this happens, we need to understand an ancient psychological term known as anusia or dormant mental defilements. Now, don't let the technical jargon scare you off. It's actually incredibly easy to understand. It simply refers to a psychological state where you mistake a delusion for absolute reality. What is this like? It's exactly like you still being sound asleep in your bed, snoring away, yet firmly believing that everything happening in your dream is 100% real. Applying this to daily life, the very second we take a completely fabricated assumption and treat it as a hard, ironclad fact, boom, we have fallen straight into this dormant mental defilement. So, how exactly do we manufacture all this suffering for ourselves? This brings us to our next section, Chapter 2, the madness of Yayadatta, the delusion assembly line. There is a classic story in the ancient texts about a man named Yayadatta. One morning, he was looking into a hazy mirror, staring at his reflection, when suddenly a completely insane thought popped into his head. He genuinely believed his head had vanished. He instantly fell into a state of sheer panic and started sprinting wildly down the streets. It sounds completely absurd, doesn't it? But honestly, we are doing the exact same thing every single day. This is the ultimate delusion assembly line running inside our brains, and it operates in 3 precise steps. Step 1, we observe a completely neutral, objective fact. Step 2, our brain goes totally wild, aggressively adding a bunch of subjective, entirely unrelated details. Step 3, and here is the most ridiculous part, we actually believe this freshly fabricated script is the absolute truth. Yashnadatta's panic is the perfect demonstration of how we scare ourselves over nothing. So, what is the ultimate takeaway here? It lies precisely in this line. Delusion arises without any real cause. We are simply taking bits and pieces of what we have seen, heard, and felt in the past, and stitching them together into a fictional narrative that we then blindly believe. These erroneous thoughts have never been objective realities. They are more like a chaotic patchwork quilt sewn together by a frantic brain. The brain takes our past experiences, writes a completely random drama, and then we turn around and become the most captivated audience member sitting in the front row, crying, screaming, and getting completely traumatized by a show we staged ourselves. It really is that wild. Now, what happens when we project this phenomenon onto our everyday social interactions? That leads us straight into our next theme, Chapter 3, the Rashomon effect. Why we are unreliable narrators of our own lives. If you take that story of Yayadada going mad and drop it right into today's hyper-complex social landscape, you will see that this is exactly how we rewrite reality on a daily basis. You've probably heard of the classic movie Rashomon. When different people recount the exact same event, everyone unconsciously adds a mountain of unrelated details. Why? Because we all desperately want to make ourselves look like the victim, the perfect one, or the hero of the story. So, we constantly exaggerate and spice up the narrative until we are completely alienated from objective truth. And do you know what the scariest part is? By the end of it, we actually end up deeply believing our own over-embellished, brain-contoured version of the story. This is the real-life reality show we stage in our relationships every single day, completely trapped inside the virtual reality of our own delusions. Since our brains are so incredibly skilled at fabricating scripts and self-hypnotizing, let me ask a highly critical, personal question. Why on earth are we so deeply conditioned to crave things that are clearly toxic and harmful to us? This brings us to a highly practical chapter 4, Craving Poison, the hidden danger of conditioned habits. Right now, let's pivot from abstract philosophy to the concrete habits you encounter every day. This contrast is incredibly stark when we place our desires right next to biological reality. Look at what we intensely crave: fermented fish, stinky tofu, or foods loaded with refined sugars and processed flour. The delusion that society has conditioned us with since childhood says, this is beautiful fermentation, this is a comforting, healing dessert. But what is the brutal biological reality? It is literally matter in a state of decay, or a substance that slowly wrecks your immune system and brain the minute it enters your body. The brain can actually package decay as complex flavor dimensions and beautify disease-causing poison as delicious food. This is the terrifying power of societal MIS conditioning. However, after hearing this, please do not run out and smash your friend's snack cupboards immediately. Rather than relying on brute force intervention, what we actually need is a process of progressive awakening. Think about it. If you directly attack someone's delusion and violently rip away their favorite junk food, what happens? They will become completely furious and fight back with everything they've got. Why? Because inside their delusion, that item is still an absolute prize. True awakening requires leaving room for people to verify reality for themselves. Once they personally experience the cause and effect leap, actually feeling the physical pain and inflammation brew DT on by a toxic diet, they will naturally wake up and take the initiative to break those bad habits on their own. So, how do we finally break out of this matrix? This leads us to our final and most empowering section, chapter 5, Taking the Rebounds of Mind, the Divine Sovereign Perspective. We have just decoded how the brain manufactures delusions and toxic cravings. Now, let's master the ultimate survival protocol. I want you to visualize this high-stakes, life or death scene in your mind. The great Zen master Hunan is completely trapped in a patch of quicksand. His body is sinking lower and lower, being ruthlessly swallowed by the suffocating sand. This quicksand survival guide is actually a powerful metaphor. It represents exactly how we step by step sink into the quicksand of our own chaotic, anxious, and spiraling thoughts, becoming completely paralyzed. At that absolute life or death moment, Master Hongguan delivers a profoundly shocking line to Hunan, who is stuck deep in the quicksand. Do not dwell on what is past, for the gone cannot be grasped. Consistently observe what follows. Let every single thought be perfectly luminous and clear, and you will naturally perceive your own true nature.
This phrase is packed with supreme, absolute wisdom. It isn't just a trick to save your life in physical quicksand. It is a direct manual on how to keep your mind completely awake. What happened in the past has already occurred. Worrying about it is utterly useless. So ignore it. What you must do right now is stare with absolute clarity at the very next thought arising in this exact moment. You must know exactly what future consequences the single thought will bring, maintaining a state of flawless, perfect awareness. Let's ground this wisdom into a concrete, 3-step sovereign perspective protocol that you can run every single day. Step E. Capture the genesis. The very millisecond the thought begins to surface, catch it instantly. Do not let it run on autopilot in the background. Step R. Run the reality check. Pull yourself out of your own head. Look at the thought like a detached bystander and ask, hold on a second. Is this another Yajna Data style delusion? Am I over-embellishing and writing a custom script again? Step 7. Executive severance. If you detect that this thought is going to harm you or others, cut it off immediately. If, then only if, the thought is genuinely aligned with objective truth and utility. Do you allow it to develop? This is the ultimate secret to taking back control of a chaotic mind. To wrap everything up, leaving your thoughts unsupervised is an incredibly dangerous game. Every single action we take in life begins as a fleeting, microscopic thought. If we fail to actively monitor these thoughts and just let our brains run wild on autopilot, the final output will always be a complete mess of suffering. But the moment you step into the sovereign perspective, you seize absolute control over the entire delusion assembly line. Please remember this ironclad truth: your mind is the ultimate architect of your reality. Whether it is success or failure, heaven or hell, everything is actively constructed by the single thought you hold in this exact moment. That brings our deep dive analysis to a close today. Since you now know that every single thought is actively sculpting your upcoming reality, I want you to turn your full, undivided attention onto your own brain right now. What is the very next thought that is about to pop up in your head? Go catch it. This material is proudly shared by the Buddha Activity Association of Australia.